When we open modern Bibles and turn to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8, we read, "When the Most High, in Hebrew El Elyon, gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided the sons of Adam from one another, he fixed the boundary of the peoples with regard for the number of the sons of Israel." New World Translation, taken from the Masoretic text. The verse fits neatly into the biblical theme of God's special relationship with Israel, but something doesn't quite add up. Why would God divide up the entire world according to the number of the sons of Israel before Israel even existed as a nation? This puzzled scholars. The phrasing felt anachronistic, as if the verse was retrofitting later theological priorities into an earlier, more ancient worldview. When they looked to the Septuagint, the earliest Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible made in the centuries before Christ, what they found was different. He fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the angels of God, or more literally, sons of God. This was a startling shift. The verse wasn't about Israel at all. It was cosmic. It suggested that the Most High assigned each nation to a member of the divine council, to spiritual beings. Scholars hypothesized that the Septuagint preserved an older Hebrew reading, and that later scribes had altered it, possibly to reinforce monotheistic theology by removing the divine plurality. And then the Masoretes, who standardized the Hebrew Bible text in their tradition, preserved only the later reading. But at that point, it was just a theory. Then, in 1947, a discovery in the Judean desert would change everything. Among the scrolls found at Qumran, the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, was a fragment of Deuteronomy, known as 4Q37. And when scholars read Deuteronomy 32:8 from that ancient manuscript, dating back over 1,000 years earlier than the Masoretic text, they found this. He fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Exactly what the Septuagint translators had preserved, and exactly what textual critics had suspected. As with everything, it is debated, but a majority of scholars, especially in the fields of textual criticism, Semitic linguistics, Second Temple Judaism, accept that the original text of Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, spoke not of Israel, but of a heavenly council, with the Most High, El Elyon, apportioning the nations to his sons. Leading scholars who support this view include Michael Heiser, especially The Unseen Realm, John Day, Patrick Miller, Mark S. Smith, The Origins of Biblical Monotheism, Emmanuel Tov, Frank Moorcross. There are some dissenting views, often from conservative theological traditions, uncomfortable with divine plurality language, scholars who argue that Bnei Yisrael might reflect a legitimate early variant, even if less original, textual minimalists who challenge whether Dead Sea Scrolls fragments are conclusive. But even among conservative scholars, many acknowledge the weight of the evidence, pointing to sons of God as original. That's not all, though. Deuteronomy 32, 8-9, together, give us even more to think about. Going back to how they are rendered in the NWT, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided the sons of Adam from one another, he fixed the boundary of the peoples with regard for the number of the sons of Israel. For Jehovah's people are his portion, Jacob is his inheritance. Here's a curious problem. An inheritance is something received from someone else. It's passed down or allotted. It's not something you assign to yourself. So if the Most High and Yahweh are the same person, how does Yahweh inherit Israel from himself? We now know that the Greek Septuagint and 4Q37 presented these verses differently. They suggested that a higher God divided up the nations and assigned them to a group of divine beings, a divine council. And in this version, Yahweh received Israel as his allotted nation. He was one among many sons of the Most High. Some scholars suggest Yahweh was always equated with El by Israel. Others argue for a development from polytheism to henotheism to monotheism, in which Yahweh gradually absorbs the roles of other gods. Still, many now believe this reflects a time in Israelite religion when El Elyon was seen as the supreme deity and Yahweh as his son was assigned to rule over Israel. It suggests a version of Israelite belief in which Yahweh had a divine origin, not yet equated fully with the Most High, but emerging from within a divine family. But wait, there's more. Let's skip to verse 43 in the New World Translation. Be glad, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will repay vengeance to his adversaries, and will make atonement for the land of his people. Now let's look at it in a different translation. This time, the New Revised Standard Version. Praise, O heavens, his people, worship him, all you gods, for he will avenge the blood of his children and take vengeance on his adversaries. He will repay those who hate him and cleanse the land for his people. This version draws from another Dead Sea Scroll manuscript, 4Q44. Notice that it's longer, and it introduces a very different idea. Worship him, all you gods. Yes, this text seems to reflect a belief in other divine beings besides God. The later Masoretic text removes not one, but two lines to get around this implication. They deleted, worship him, all you gods, which takes care of the problematic theology. But they also removed, he will repay those who hate him. And they changed the wording from children or sons to servants to keep things more neutral. Why two lines instead of one? Because the original text is poetic. It follows a structured pattern, AB, AB, AB. The redacted version rewrites it as ABBA. This smooths out the theology and still leaves a tidy poetic structure. But the older, longer version survives in both the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint. It's important to note, both versions of Deuteronomy 32, 8-9 appear among the Dead Sea Scrolls. That means both versions were known and accepted by the Qumran community. So in ancient times, multiple versions of the same passage were in circulation. And that means Judaism wasn't always monotheistic. I'll save that for another video.